Yo, peace and love to everybody. Welcome to Haven Study Hall. Today I'm going to be reading out of the book from the Browder File, Volume 2, Survival Strategies for Africans in America, 13 Steps to Freedom by Anthony T. Browder. And the main reason why I'm sharing this information because this information isn't going to be taught in schools. And hopefully after watching this video, y'all go out and purchase this book if you don't have it already. So let's get straight to it. And I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to actually interact with him and, got to ask him a question, you know what I mean? Shout out Cosmic, you know what I'm saying? And my ultimate goal, you know what I mean, is to free any and all false teachings and doctrines from the consciousness of Black people globally. You feel me? So we're going to get straight into it, I got a lot of extra slides, I'm always updating this. But if you have the book already, you can follow along with the book. You know what I'm saying? But if you haven't read the book yet, don't worry, because I'm going to share the information. This for promotional purposes, you know what I'm saying? Y'all go get that book, add it to your library. With that being said, we're going to begin right here. Racism and white supremacy are the most persistent problems confronting Africans in America, Part 1, okay? The United States of America was conceived in sin. Liberty and justice are Uncle Sam's adopted parents, and their names were duly recorded on his birth certificate on the 4th of July in 1776. The identity of this nation's true parents has been a well-regarded secret for over 2 centuries. The mere mention of their names evokes a chorus of denials from his offspring, the echoes of which can be heard reverberating from sea to shining sea. Despite numerous detractions, America's family records have been carefully searched. Blood tests have been conducted and the genetic evidence has been carefully analyzed, which confirms, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that racism and white supremacy are the true parents of this nation. Knowledge of America's true parentage is of grave importance, particularly if America's stepchildren and Africans in America wish to live truly meaningful lives. The European Americans' declarations of independence were a hollow mockery rife with contradictions to the enslaved Africans and the indigenous population of this land. What kind of mind would create a nation where all men were deemed equal in the eyes of God except red men and black men? If you study the development of early Europeans, you will begin to see how they have historically viewed the world and its inhabitants. By examining the history of racism and white supremacy, you will also gain a deeper understanding of the numerous challenges that confront you in America. Okay? Let's keep it pushing. I'm going to try to keep my opinions and thoughts to myself. I really just want to get through this information. Okay? Let's keep it pushing. Racism and white supremacy were the motivating ideologies behind the British colonists' drive to exterminate Native Americans and assume control of their land. Racism and white supremacy were also responsible for creating and sustaining the conditions which led to the enslavement, death, and disenfranchisement of millions of Africans and their American descendants. Okay? And disclaimer, this is rated R for real. You know what? You know what I'm saying? So some of these images in this presentation may be a tad bit graphic, so just giving y'all a heads up, just giving y'all a heads up, okay? So throughout the last 4.5 centuries, racism and white supremacy have continually threatened the existence of African people before, during, and after their enslavement. These threats have forced Africans to modify their beliefs, thoughts, and behavior in order to survive on a planet where they are regarded as third world people. Those who now claim to be members of the first world are latecomers to the human family. Okay? And one more thing I just wanted to say. After the video is over, because I'm going to just do chapter for chapter. So once I finish this chapter, I'm going to record another video for the next chapter. But let me know what your thoughts is in the comments. You know what I'm saying? We can have a discussion in the comments. And I'm putting together a book club, and I have a Discord So if anybody's interested in the Discord, I can find a way to drop the link in the description. So let's keep it pushing. But you see the Omeg head right there. You feel me? You see that? You know what I'm saying? They was finding so many Omeg heads. They was even cracking them. You feel me? But again, like I said, I ain't trying to get to talking too much. Oh yeah, let me just say this real quick. On the bottom, you see where it says law, land, air, water. Just notice how the scales is unbalanced, and then you see the scales is balanced on this picture. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna keep it pushing. I don't want to get too far off of the information from the book because I really want to get this information out to the people that may not have access to this information. So look, Africans were the first beings on Earth. They gave the world its earliest culture, civilization, and conceptualization of God. Mankind continues to benefit from the African interpretation of universal forces that affect every living thing. Africans in America will never know these truths if they continue to view the world through the eyes of their former slave masters. Okay? Them pyramids is in Meroe, if I'm not mistaken, in Meroe, in Nubia. You know what I'm saying? See the Nubians, see the left foot forward, you know what I'm saying? That's symbolic to trampling over evil. And the left side of your body activates the right hemisphere of your brain, which is your feminine, aka your spiritual side. So basically, that's symbolic to balancing basically both hemispheres because when you look at the world through the eyes of your slave master or former slave masters, they're left brain dominant. You know what I'm saying? And it's a deeper science to that I'm not able to get fully into in this presentation. So let's keep it pushing. All right. For Africans to understand the nature of the world in which they live, they must first understand the nature of the people who interpreted the world for them. This interpretation determined their perceptions of reality and dictated how they now function in the world. Since the world of contemporary Africa has been shaped by racist ideologies formulated long ago, it is necessary to understand the roots of racism and white supremacy in order to correctly interpret current events and formulate meaningful plans for the future. So, as you can see, briefly breaking down some of these pictures, right? You can see the Moors, bathe in them. You know what I'm saying? We taught them how to bathe. You know what I'm saying? They just started wearing underwear like a couple hundred years ago. You know what I'm saying? We basically civilized them, and then they basically, we basically facing the karma, I guess, for doing so. And then on the top right, you see the brother drinking that water. You feel me? I don't know exactly where he's at, but the water that they made for melanated people, I wouldn't even have trusted it to be honest. They probably spit in it. Who knows what? You know what I'm saying? But and it's a book down here that if y'all want to check out, I don't have it, but for whatever reason, I just thought about looking into some books on melanated people in ancient Greece. But it says when blacks ruled Greece and Rome. I can go look into that if y'all want to as well. So my bad, I didn't mean to take take away from the information. I was just sharing my thoughts. But let's keep it pushing. Contrary to popular belief, there is no such thing as race. Race is a false construct which was created by Europeans hundreds of years ago in order to differentiate themselves from people of African descent and other people of color throughout the world. The concept of race was created by scientists and scholars at Göttingen University in Germany between 1785 and 1800. During this 25-year period, these scholars invented the word Caucasian, divided humanity into races, and contended that the white race was superior. Oops, I didn't mean to go up. Um, and that's the dude right there. What's his name? Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. That's his name. That's him and other people in Germany um created race or whatever. And the term Caucasian. You know, let's keep it pushing. The illusionary the illusionary myth of race has been in existence for only 2 centuries, but it pales in comparison with the ideology of white supremacy and the system of racism that it spawned. The power inherent in the concept of white supremacy, along with the mere visual perceptions of black inferiority. If one believes that white is superior, then anything that is not white, color, or black is perceived as inferior. If white is holy and pure, then black must be ungodly and evil. As crazy as it seems, this convoluted logic has been used by civilized men, so they say, scholars, scientists, theologians, politicians, and others, for hundreds of years to justify the murder and enslavement of people of color. Now, and in this book, it's a chapter on melanin. So I'm telling you, if y'all like what y'all hearing so far, you know what I'm saying, you go on Amazon, order it online. You know what I'm saying. If you don't want to get it for yourself, get it for somebody you care about. You know what I'm saying. But this is a good read, and yeah, you see these pictures right here. You know, if you notice anything about the picture with the two girls, if you notice the melanated girl, you see the hairstyle, like they purposely did that to make her look like devil horns, basically to make her look evil, and her with the little curls to make her look, you know what I mean? Basically, good evil. You know what I'm saying? Like the melanated girl is supposed to be the evil one, and the other one supposed to be the good one or whatever. And if you notice, if you see her facial expression, it really speaks for itself. And then down here it says coolest monkey in the jungle, and then the other one says what it says, survival expert. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't know whoever allowed their kid to take that picture. They need to have a talk. But let's keep it pushing, y'all. If Africans are to survive in America, they must confront the inescapable realities of racism and white supremacy. They must be aware that their ancestors have battled these oppressive foes for over 15 generations, and that freedom will not be achieved by prayers and dreams alone. The liberation of the African mind, body, and spirit can only be achieved using an African-centered value system that makes the study of the successes and failures of the past the highest priority. Okay? Many ethnic groups have struggled to survive in America, and those who have achieved meaningful measure of freedom have wisely maintained their ancestral roots. Clearly, the road to the future begins in the past. And just quick little side note, Japan got, y'all know what happened in Japan, Hiroshima and all that, right? I forgot how long it took for them. I don't know if it took them, 20 years, but they bounced back. And they like one of the most technologically advanced, uh, regions of the world. You see what I'm saying? They bounced back in a matter of years. So I was like, I just want to put that on the table. If they could do it, we could do it. And that image in the center is in Mali. I mean, it's the Mali revolt in Tanzania in 1905. You feel me? So, you know what I'm saying? That was on that battlefield. I mean, once, I think, I think I'm almost, almost finished, y'all. Yeah, we got some slides to get through. Let me see, hold on real quick. Okay, so hold on. There we go. And I'm gonna get into them other slides when I get into melanin, but I'm really just dealing with racism and white supremacy. So look, in 1492, Europeans control only 9% of the world. Within 300 years afterwards, they colonized one-third of the global humanity. By 1880, Europeans ruled over two-thirds of the globe. By 1935, they were in political control of not only 85% of the planet's resources, but also 75% of the world's population. In the 1990s, Europeans now control 85% of the world's population through its weapon of geopolitics, or the New World Order. And it's a book y'all can go check out if y'all want to. I don't have it, but I put it there. So one day, I'm gonna eventually invest in it. It's on Egypt, Afrocentric Geopolitics by Kwame Nantambo, forward by Anthony T. Browder. So let's keep it pushing, y'all. Let's keep it pushing. So race, racism, and white supremacy are the ideologies which are the byproduct of a xenophobic consciousness that has been imposed upon most of the inhabitants of the planet. The terms such as white man's burden and manifest destiny express the Europeans' belief in their God-given right to conquer the world and introduce civilization to people of color. According to this doctrine, the whiter your skin, the greater your intelligence and the more privileges you are entitled to. To this end, racism and white supremacy are the power behind the most destructive forces the world has ever witnessed. Racism and white supremacy are synonymous and must never be confused with acts of prejudice. They are as different as night and day. Okay. And, you know, bear with, some of my slides, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully everything's readable, you know what I'm saying? Just want to get this information out. All right. So all people of, all people have prejudices. Let me read this top part real quick. Hold up. Prejudice is an assumption or an opinion about someone simply based on that person's membership to a particular group. For example, people could be prejudiced against someone else of a different ethnicity, gender, or religion. All people have prejudices. This may be one of humankind's great failings. However, for a group to be legitimately classified as racist, it must possess the power to impose its prejudices on members of other ethnic groups. Power transforms a prejudged belief into an ideology that is popularized, legitimized, and finally incorporated into the legislative, judicial, religious, and social system designed to control the powerless. This system of racism and white supremacy was created to sustain the white minority's global dominance over the colored majority populations. Racism and white supremacy ensures its control by influencing the thought and behavior of those who benefit from the perpetuation of this ideology, as well as its intended victims. And this right here, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, right? Dr. Wilson has researched this subject extensively and has identified 9 areas of people activity that are controlled by racists and white supremacists that exert wide-ranging influence on society. And here it is: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And to add one more, health also. Okay, let's keep it pushing, y'all. We almost done. By understanding the origins and development of humanity, the evolution of mankind, and the conditions which led to the creation of the European, Africans can begin to see the world from a truly different perspective. By looking at world events from this point of view, there can be no doubt that the presence of Africans in the Americas and the current conditions of Africans in Africa are the direct result of survival strategies implemented by racist white supremacists over 500 years ago. The events of the past do not dissipate. They set in motion a chain of events that transcend time and space and shape the present. Okay, let's keep it pushing with you. As you can see all the resources. Y'all know what's up. Now, I'm just giving y'all a warning. This next slide is a tad bit graphic, so fair warning. Fair warning. Okay. Consider this brief timeline of European and African relations as links in a chain that was forged in Europe and currently binds Africans in America. Now, this was in the Congo. So they come in there, you know, pretending to be our friend or whatever, and then it's the end result. That they sent missionaries into the Congo, and this was the end result. Okay, that's the brutal reality of our interactions with the European throughout all these years. So look, in 1441, 12 kidnapped Africans were presented as a gift to Prince Henry of Portugal. Okay, that's him right there. My alarm going off. Hold on. My bad, y'all. Check this out. In 1442, Pope Eugenius the Fourth granted Europeans permission to enslave Africans whom he regarded as soulless individuals. And that's him right there. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. That's all I'm gonna say. In 1444, Europeans began importing Africans into Europe and enslaved them in the Americas less than a century later. These actions over the next 400 years resulted in the death and enslavement of over 100 million people of African descent. And I would recommend getting the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, Africa, the Mother of Western Civilization. Um, what else? Cultural Genocide. Um, and those are by Dr. Yosef Ben Yatanan. What else? Yeah, I think that's about it for right now. And it's another one. It's one by Dr. Clark. Give me 1 second. Let me grab it off the shelf real quick. And here's another one. It's Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism by Dr. John Henry Clark. That's another good book if you want to get deeper into it, because the Arab slave trade was first before the European slave trade. The Europeans got they game from the Arabs. You feel me? And they was enslaving each other too at one point. That's what slave. I think that's where it come from, Slavic, something like that. But in 1665, the colony of Maryland enacted legislation declaring that black people shall constitute an available, uncompensated, permanently subordinated workforce, which shall be separated from the white society. In 1857, the Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision declared that African Americans were not citizens of the United States. Okay? Y'all can go look into that too. Look at this. Look at this. The Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference. You feel me? And this has a lot to do when they committed that genocide in the Congo. You know what I mean? But it says in 1885, after 450 years of enslaving Africans, 14 European nations met in Berlin to decide how they would divide Africa among themselves and colonize its inhabitants. The Berlin Conference spanned almost 4 months of deliberations, from November 15, 1884 to February 26, 1885. Okay? By the end of the conference, the European powers had nearly divided Africa up amongst themselves, drawing the boundaries of Africa such as we know them today. Go look into the Berlin Conference. Okay? Hopefully y'all can see these letters, but I'm going to read it for y'all. Plessy versus Ferguson was a landmark 1896 U.S. Supreme Court decision that upheld the constitutionality of racial segregation under the separate but equal doctrine. As a result, restrictive Jim Crow legislation and separate public accommodations based on race became commonplace. In 1896, 19 years after African Americans were granted citizenship, the United States Supreme Court in Plessy v. Ferguson formally established the doctrine of separate but equal to justify the continuation of racial segregation. So the only reason why I put these pictures up, right? You see the dude like he's gonna poke him with the flag. I think, that's what it looked like. I'm not sure. The one in the middle, like we're the lion, they're the hyenas. I don't think the lion's gonna go out of their way to to integrate with a group of hyenas. The lion gonna do what they do. The hyenas gonna do what they do. You know what I mean? So you see all that marching. It's it is what it is. Let's keep it pushing, y'all. In 1694, I said 16. My bad. In 1964, Congress passed Civil Rights Bill banning discrimination in housing, education, and employment. However, the Civil Rights Bill of 1990 was vetoed by President Bush because he feared it would introduce the destructive force of quotas. Okay, And I'll put this picture right here, just to, see the bird right there. You see the snake. Now that snake look nice, look friendly, but it's you know it has the potential to basically bite you and poison you. You feel me? Everything that's glitter ain't gold. You know what I'm saying? Well, let's keep it lit. In 1992, the Supreme Court sets limits to the 1965 Voting Rights Act and struck down the hate crime law that banned cross burnings. Okay. In 1995, the United States Congress passed legislation ensuring that African Americans will receive prison sentences for drug possession of crack cocaine at a ratio of 500 to 1 compared with possession of powder cocaine used by European Americans. Under this law, possession of more than 5 grams of crack cocaine triggers a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison. Simple possession of any quantity of any other substance by a first-time offender, including powder cocaine, is a misdemeanor offense punishable by a maximum of 1 year in prison. So you see, let's keep it pushing. In 1996, an investigative reporter from the San Jose Mercury News alleged that the CIA played a major role in the introduction of powder and crack cocaine into the African American community to finance anti-communist forces in Nicaragua during the 1970s and the 1980s. Okay, these events may these events may be seen by some as isolated events that have no big bearing on the present and do not constitute a specific pattern of behavior. When considered from an enlightened and well-informed perspective, it can be shown that the historical relationship between Africans and Europeans has been filled with strife and turmoil that will likely continue until power is more equally shared. So, if racism and white supremacy were not a persistent problem in America, Africans would not have been enslaved. There would have been no civil war. There would be no need for affirmative action programs, nor would there be a debate concerning the merits of continuing such programs. The presence of a racist and white supremacist consciousness in America led to the enactment of constitutional amendments, the establishment of numerous civil rights organizations such as the NAACP, or the National Association for the Advancement of the Colored People, or the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, and the development of HBCU, which is historically black colleges and universities. Over the centuries, African Americans were told by their oppressors to lift themselves up by their bootstraps. Even though many African Americans were bootless, some who attempted to uplift themselves found the boot of their oppressors weighing heavily on their backs. Other Africans overcame oppressive forces but never fully enjoyed the fruits of their labor because of the enactment of local, state, and federal legislation that prevented the accumulation of wealth and power. Numerous laws, also called black codes, y'all can go look it up, were written to ensure that skilled African Americans could not secure licenses, open businesses, and compete fairly with European American businessmen. Many of these black codes were written when chattel slavery ended, and they remained in effect for almost 100 years. Despite these obstacles, U.S. history is replete with numerous examples of African American men and women who overcome tremendous odds to establish businesses, buy land, and develop their communities. Typically, whenever African American professionals were prohibited from joining European American business or professional associations, they formed their own. An example will be shown on the next slide. So all this is still happening. It's just covert. It just went covert, basically. It just went covert. So the African American physicians prohibited from joining the American Medical Association established the National Medical Association in 1895. The same is true of the African Americans who formed the National Dental Association in 1913 and the National Bar Association in 1925. The ever-prevailing presence of racism and white supremacy in America has continually forced African Americans to fend for themselves, sometimes with disastrous results shown on the next slide. And again, I learned about this when I was an adult. I don't recall them teaching this in school. I'm just being honest. Black Wall Street. Okay, you gotta do your research on Black Wall Street. In the early 1900s, the African American business district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, was deemed the most prosperous in all America and was commonly referred to as Black Wall Street. The many banks, theaters, doctors' offices, and other African American owned businesses were a source of pride for African Americans in the community and throughout the nation. The economic stability of Black Wall Street was shattered in May 1921 during one of the worst, I think it might be a typo. I'm gonna just say worst blank in American history when Tulsa became the first city ever to be bombed from the air. Irving Wallace described the wreckage of the black community in an article on March 13, 1993, shown on the next slide. Now, I think the only thing that they should have invested in, which, in my honest opinion, would have to be their own military, to protect, you know, they to protect Black Wall Street, like had their own fighter jets and you know what I'm saying, whatever. So you know what I'm saying. So if there was to get under attack, they could protect themselves. Basically, how they should have invested or created their own military. That's my opinion. And this is why that's why learning from the past is important. You know what I mean? Black Wall Street massacre, right? Whites invaded the Black District, burning, looting, and killing. To break up the riot, the police commandeered private planes and dropped dynamite. The police arrested more than 4,000 blacks and interned them in 3 camps. All blacks were forced to carry green ID cards, and when Tulsa was zoned for a new railroad station, the tracks were routed through the Black business district, thus destroying it. See? Let's keep it pushing. And I'm gonna say this too, when y'all read this book, I know some of y'all may be in y'all angry stage when it comes to like spiritual enlightenment. My best advice is don't get stuck there. That's all I'm gonna say. Reading books like this will turn you up because some of us might not have heard about this or known about this. You know what I'm saying? Realizing like, oh, so this is why we're so disenfranchised. Okay, like you know what I'm saying? Yeah, we got to do something about it. You know, so let's keep it lit. There are numerous articles and publications that discuss this sad chapter of American history, and they are well worth reading. The Gap Band, an R&B musical group that hails from Tulsa, has kept the memory of this tragic event alive. The letters G, A, and P are the initials of the streets of Greenwood, Archer, and Pine that were in the heart of the Black business district, destroyed during the Tulsa race riot. I didn't know that at first. When I first read this, I'm like, wow, I didn't even know. That's interesting. Let's keep it pushing. A similar incident occurred in Roseville, Florida in January of 1923. The black town of Roseville was destroyed by a mob of riotous whites after a white woman claimed to have been assaulted by a black man. The motion picture Rosewood, which was directed by John Singleton in 1996, documents this tragic episode in African American history. I've never seen that movie before, but I'm gonna look it up, see if it's on Tubi or something, or Netflix. All right. There is no aspect of life in America immune from the ravages of racism. The specter of white supremacy has also reared its ugly head within the American church, as ministers proclaimed that all humans were children of God from their pulpits. Racism prevented blacks and whites from sitting together in the pews. This hypocrisy compelled Richard Allen to establish America's first African American denomination in 1974. True to his cultural learnings, Allen called this institution the African Methodist Episcopal Church. My bad, my alarm keep going off. Let's keep it pushing. It is often stated that the most racially segregated hour in the United States occurs between 11 a.m. and noon on Sunday mornings. European Americans go to a white church and pray to a white God. African Americans traditionally go to a black church and pray to a white God. Within the last decade, however, there has been a growing movement among African American Christians to acknowledge the African origins of Jesus Christ, but I have yet to see many European Americans embrace this view. And if y'all want, y'all can go get the book, "The Historical Origins of Christianity" by Chancellor Williams. That's a good book. If you're a Christian, if you want to learn the historical origins of Christianity, that's a good read. All right, let's go. In 1992, Pope John Paul II asked God to forgive Christians for their involvement in the shameful commerce of the European enslavement of Africans. In 1995, during their annual meeting, the Southern Baptist Convention asked God to forgive the racism they had condemned throughout their 150 years of existence. Let us not forget that the burning cross of the Ku Klux Klan represent their fervent desire to uphold white Christian traditions. You almost finished, y'all. You almost finished. You almost done. You almost done, y'all. Let me take a swig of this water real quick. Let me catch my breath. Let me catch my breath. All right. So during the pyramid, I think I said pyramid. During the period of African enslavement in the South, white ministers frequently used biblical scriptures to justify slavery. As recently as May 9, 1996, Alabama State Senator Charles Davidson, a Republican congressional candidate, used biblical scriptures to defend the enslavement of Africans. Although Davidson was later admonished for his views, the relationship between religion and racism was examined by numerous individuals and organizations. So I'm gonna read like one of these scriptures real quick. Now this is the Exodus, I believe chapter 21, verse 20 and 21. It says, "When a slave owner strikes a male or female slave with a rod, and the slave dies immediately, the owner shall be punished. But if the slave survives a day or two, there is no punishment, for the slave is the owner's property." And y'all can look up. I'm not gonna read all of them, but y'all can look these. Y'all can screenshot this, if y'all want to. Excuse me. But let's keep it pushing. You almost finished. Supposed safe havens for the worship of God. Black churches were often targets of bombings by white supremacists in the 1960s. African American sanctuaries were not deemed sacred in the past, and their sanctity continues to be disrespected today. During recent decades, there have been numerous acts of vandalism committed against African American churches. These attacks have increased dramatically during the 1990s. They increased dramatically during the 1990s. Go get this book. I got this book. Go get it. It's African Origins of the Major Western Religions, by Dr. Yosef Ben Yakana. Go get that book. It's a good read. Got a lot of powerful information in there. So on May 22nd, 1996, the Washington Post reported on the House Judiciary Committee hearing on church arsons. According to Justice Department figures, there have been 28 arson attacks on African American churches, mainly in the South, in the past 17 months. Right? Civil rights groups say as many as 45 black churches have been attacked since 1990. At a congressional hearing, Deval L. Patrick, Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, testified, "The numbers are chilling. We are facing an epidemic of terror." However, federal law enforcement officials stated that they have found no evidence of a widespread conspiracy, even though some incidents appear related and others have been traced to members of white supremacist groups. Y'all can go look into that. Burning Faith Church Arson in the American South, Christopher B. Strain. So let's keep it pushing. It is a sad commentary on the state of this nation when one realizes there is no aspect of life in America exempt from the horrors of white supremacy slash racism. The racist social structure was designed to render African Americans mentally, physically, and spiritually subservient to the will of their perceived masters. History teaches that racist organizations and institutions will never change their ideologies until they are forced to do so by the determined will of those who have been oppressed. In the past, whenever changes have been made, they were usually temporary modifications for political, economic, or religious gains that benefited the majority population. People of African descent must be ever mindful of Francis Cresswell's assertion that the driving force behind racism and white supremacy is white genetic survival. People of European ancestry have historically enacted laws forbidding racial mixing basic fear of genetic annihilation. Scientists have shown that Europeans are genetically recessive, and politicians have enacted legislation to ensure that a child born of a union between a European and a genetically dominant African will never be classified as white. This reality has been the driving force behind the laws that upheld apartheid, segregation, and Jim Crow. Long live Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Y'all can go get her book on the ISIS papers, you know what I'm saying, and the Osiris papers as well. And look, and and check out some of her lectures on YouTube. Jim Crow era and racism, right? Such laws reveal European commitment to ensure their genetic survival in a world dominated by people of color. Racism and white supremacy is an unfortunate reality of life, but its presence should not be used as an excuse for failure. Racism and white supremacy can only be overcome by acknowledging their existence, understanding their operational mode, and formulating plans of action to neutralize their objectives. Okay, you're almost done, y'all. You're almost done. Racism works only if you buy into the concept of race and believe in the superficial hierarchical ranking of human beings. White supremacy exists because people of color have been taught to believe in the supremacy of white people and have allowed them to define reality. Racism and white supremacy is a false system that derives its power from the unquestioned support given by people of color. You know, let's keep it pushing. We almost finished. A few more slides. Currently, there are numerous propagandists who will have you believe that racism is dead and that America has become a colorblind society. Both statements are false. Racism will end only when sexism, greed, and hatred ends, and not 1 second before. Those who claim not to see color and trivializing the ethnic differences that make people unique, ignoring a person's skin color is a poor excuse for not cultivating humane behavior that allows you to see all people as human and appreciate the divinity that exists within everyone. Okay? Period. So the time is now, y'all. The time is now, family. Real talk. It is time for people of African descent to begin empowering themselves through a change in our consciousness and corresponding changes in our behavior. When these changes are made, they will lead to increased awareness of the power that exists within the individual and the collective group. We have been separated from our sources of power using fear, anger, and miseducation. By using our time judiciously, we can overcome fear, abolish anger, and empower ourselves with new systems of knowledge and governance. Y'all can go check these books out right here. Um, I got The African Origin of Civilization, Myth of Reality. That's a good book. All of these is good books. I'm so sure the ones that I got, the ones that I don't have, that I'm eventually gonna get. I got The Stolen Legacy. I got African Mother, A Western Civilization. I had The Rebirth of African Civilization. I gave it to somebody, and they mother threw the book away. You know why? I don't know. But I gave it to somebody, because I thought it was gonna help them. You know what I'm saying? And I got The Destruction of Black Civilization, and They Came Before Columbus. I got that one, and I got the Black Man of the Nile and His Family. I got that book too. So all the other ones that I don't have, if any of y'all got these books, y'all can drop some in the comments. You know what I'm saying? Share your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I have a Discord. So like, if y'all want the link to the Discord, I'll put it in the No, I'm not gonna put it in the what you call it in the description. I just thought about it. I'll send you the link. You may have to follow me on one of my social medias. So the conclusion of the first step, right? It is helpful for you to do a self-analysis of how racism and white supremacy have affected your life. Please set aside some time on a daily or weekly basis to conduct the 3 exercises listed below and record your answers so that you may evaluate and update them over an extended period. Do not feel pressured to answer all the questions in one sitting, and above all, be completely honest with yourself when you do answer the questions. So at the end of each of these like chapters or sessions, or you know what I mean, they have like things they have like activities that you can do. So question number 1, right? When did you first become aware of racism, and how did that initial awareness affect you? Matter of fact, y'all can answer these in the comments if y'all want. Matter of fact, for like viewer participation, if y'all want, y'all can answer these questions in the comments. After this one is examine the 9 areas of human activity and list those areas where you have been directly affected by racism and white supremacy. So the 9 areas, we went over those already, but the 9 areas of human activity, okay? The next one. In disregard, it's saying question. I just put that there. I was, a little tired. But interview the elder members of your family and discuss the impact that racism and white supremacy have had on their lives. Compare your findings and evaluate the extent to which racist attitudes have changed. As you record and evaluate your responses, you will become more aware of the presence of white supremacy in your life. As your awareness increases, you must not allow yourself to become overwhelmed or intimidated by your findings. This knowledge will help you deal more effectively with the obstacles in your path. Okay? Now, the last slide for step 1, right? Awareness of a problem is often the first step towards developing the ability to overcome it. And here's some references, and suggested readings. This is Claude Anderson, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Search for Power and Economic Justice. Y'all can go look that book up. Marimba Annie, Urugu, An African-Centered Critique of European Cultural Thought and Behavior. You can get Charles Finch III, Echoes of the Old Dark Land, Themes from the African Eden. Y'all can go get that book. Andrew Hacker, Two Nations, Black and White, Separate, Hostile, Unequal. And then Francis Cress Welsing, The ISIS Papers. Okay? And the next video I'm doing next, or the next one I'm gonna do is gonna be on become aware of the power of the media. So I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope y'all go buy the book. And if y'all interested in joining the book club, just let me know in the comments, and I'll figure out a way to reach out to you, and I can send you the link to the Discord. It's time sensitive, so once you get the link, you have to click the link and join before it expires. I hope this information is helpful. And yeah, I just hit 49 minutes. You know what I'm saying? I really try to keep my videos short, but since I'm reading directly out of the book, it takes a while. So that's why I try to keep my opinions to a minimum. Next time I try not to, I just read, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, the goal is to get the information out. I'm not here to try to be the smartest, impress nobody. I'm not trying to get famous, go viral or nothing. I'm more focused on value and getting this information out. So again, I hope y'all enjoyed. Much love to everybody. I hope the rest of y'all day is the best of y'all day. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Peace.